this is Charlotte.ivey and Lacey Eckels from the JCPS Science Department. Today we want to talk to you a little bit about how to use Google Tour Creator and Google Expeditions in your science classroom. As you probably know, the 5 E's are what our instructional framework is based on. And so using Google Tour Creator and Google Expeditions are great tools during the elaborate phase. After you've had an opportunity for the kids to explain and explore, then these tools are really helpful for them to use. So what we want to do now is we want to walk you through a few places in the science curriculum where you can use these powerful tools. These will just be a few. There are many more that we won't really be talking about today. So what I want to start with is talking to you a little bit about fourth grade and looking specifically at the unit Soils, Rocks, and Landforms. So there are a lot of different places within this that you can use these tools. For example, in Investigation 1, Part 4, students investigate the focus question, what is our schoolyard soil? So during this time, students could use Google Tour Creator to show the areas around the school of the different types of soil that they collected. Students can also upload pictures or video of them gathering the different soil samples, their observations, and potentially any experiments or investigations they might do as well. As you continue on throughout the unit in Investigation 2, Part 3, students investigate the focus question, where are erosion and deposition happening in the schoolyard? So students once again can pop on to Google Tour Creator and actually show their actual school. And then as they're showing their school, once again, they can show different places where they might see erosion, deposition, or weathering going on. And then the students can add their comments about how this occurred, the things that they're learning within the classroom. After students have had an opportunity to actually do the science, this is when the best time for kids to be looking at doing things like Google Expeditions. So as you continue throughout the same unit, there are several more focus questions where students were able to do that. For example, students could go on to Google Expeditions and look at a variety of different landforms on Earth. Students can also look at places where the Earth's surface is changing quickly. And finally, they can look at places where earthquakes and volcanoes commonly occur on Earth.
As we move on to 6th grade, a natural fit for Google Tour and Google Expedition is the Geoscience Processes unit. And it's in fact a continuation of the 4th grade Soils, Rocks, and Landforms standard, ESS 2-2. In this unit, students and teachers are already utilizing Google Earth Tours, where the very first lesson, students are introduced to Earth's landforms through a Google Tour. Here you can see the student sheet. Google Tours are also used several times throughout the instructional unit, all by the teacher as a way to present the information. In Lesson 1, as we discussed, they do the landforms tour to figure out about diversity of landforms around the world. Lesson 6, they do a Colorado River tour to learn more about sedimentary rocks. Lesson 8, a Pacific Northwest tour to learn about igneous rocks. Lesson 9, they do a volcanoes and earthquakes tour, obviously to learn about earthquakes and volcanoes. Lesson 12, a plate boundary map tour to learn about plate motion. Lesson 14, we continue in Lesson 15, Appalachian Mountain tour to learn a little bit more about metamorphic rocks. So there are a couple ways that we can actually have students engage in using the Google Tours throughout the unit. There are 2 different natural fits for this to happen. The first would be Lesson 18 has a culminating project where each student is assigned a landform and answers the following questions. What process led to that formation? How is its existence affecting the surrounding areas? How is it likely to change in the future? And the time scale at which that was developed. Students could use Google Tour to create their culminating project by zooming in on different places where that landform exists around the world and answering those questions when they click on that actual landform and inputting that information into the computer. Another way they could do a very similar tour is actually more embedded in the instructional unit, where students learn about a landform in a lesson, and then they begin creating their own tour by going to that, finding a place in Google Earth where that actual landform exists, and creating an actual tour themselves, and then learning about another landform and then adding to that tour that they created before, and then rinsing and repeating throughout the unit. So it's more of a back and forth. So then by the end, when we get to lesson 18, that culminating project, the project is essentially already done because they built it throughout instruction versus doing it at the end. These are two really simple ways to use this super powerful tool in the 6th grade geoscience process unit. If we continue on that same trajectory with the same standard, ESS 2-2, in high school, it gets a little more complicated, as you can see. Some examples of how you could use this Google tour in high school is by having students show the loss of ground vegetation and how it causes an increase in water runoff and soil erosion, or go to some dammed rivers and how that increases groundwater recharge and decreases sediment transport and increases coastal erosion. Or we can talk about it through the lens of greenhouse gases and the rise in global temperature. So this is kind of a storyline of how you can use Google Earth and Google Expeditions throughout K-12 classroom just by using one standard. We hope that this was helpful for you, and please share with us any other great ideas of how you could use this in your classroom. Thank you very much.
Hello everybody, this is your high school digital innovation leader, Matt Bulka, and in this video we are going to learn how to use Google Expeditions in the classroom. So I'm on my phone right now, I'm screen mirroring. You can see my cute little dog Pippin right there. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to download the Google Expeditions app. So we are going to go to the App Store, and we're going to type in Google Expeditions. Now this would need to be done on your own phone. If you happen to not have that, it's also found in the Android store as well, or the Google Play Store. It is a free app. You can see that mine needs to be updated, but we should not have any issues with that. So I'm just going to close out so we don't have to wait for that to happen. After we're done, the Google Expeditions app looks like this. It is the orange flag with the circle around it, and we're going to go ahead and click on that. So when we go in here, we can see several different scenes that I've already downloaded. So you can search through the downloads. You can go to Discover, and this is where you can really find the thousands upon thousands of augmented reality, which is AR, and the virtual reality, which is VR, tours that you can take. So let's say you're in a science class and you're teaching about the Grand Canyon. I can go ahead and type in Grand Canyon into the Discover section and hit return, and it'll bring up all of these different scenes that we see here. I've already got one of these downloaded. It's the AirPano VR, the one right at the top that has the check mark next to it. So I'm just going to back out of that. And I am going to go to my library. Now in the library, you can see that you have downloads. You also have My Tours. So one of the things you can do, and what we're going to talk about in another video, is how to use Google's Tour Creator to create a tour that you can use in Google Expedition with your classes. One example that you could do is if you wanted to talk about rock formations in Kentucky, you could go to some different caves or things like that, take 360 videos or 360 pictures of the camera, and you can upload them and make your own tour out of that. But for today, we're just going to go and look at our downloads, and we're going to click on our Grand Canyon one right here. You'll see when it brings it up, it gives some background information about it. It lets you view it. It lets you view it in VR, and it lets you guide. So what we're going to do is I'm going to click on Guide. This is what you would do with students. It's going to bring up who you're guiding as and a number. You can just hit Got It. That's not really important. But you can see as I turn the screen around, we can kind of look at this 360 view. In order for it to work for my students, they would need to hit Start. I would need to hit Start. I'm sorry. And there are several different scenes here. We have 5 of them. We can see if we scroll up on that, it gives us some background information on the scene. It gives us some beginner questions, some intermediate questions, and some advanced questions. So I'm going to hit Start here. It says that there are no explorers found. That's because I don't have anybody connected to us. One of the things you can do, though, is these things down here, the Supergroup Rocks. You can click on that, and you'll see on the screen that it brings up a circled area. Now, while your students are in tours, you can see little smiley faces, and what this does for them is it puts an arrow on their view, and you can see how many faces are viewing that circle. And if I want to take that off, I just tap on the screen. If I want to come up with my own custom areas to look at, I can just simply hold and create a circle myself. So I'm going to hit the X to close out of that. You can go through all those scenes. I'm just going to leave. If you wanted to view this yourself in VR, you could simply by clicking the VR, and that requires you to put your phone into your viewer, but I'm just going to click out of that as well. Now, we're going to close out of this. If I wanted to follow someone, what I would do is I would come here to explore, which is what your students would do. If a person in the class is guiding one of these, their name will appear here, and the students will just click follow, and it'll go through. We're going to talk about how to use Google Tour Creator to make virtual reality tours with your students. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to Google Tour Creator, as I do not remember the exact URL to get there. And you can see Tour Creator Google VR is the first thing that pops up. So we're going to click on that, and that is going to take us here. It talks to you a little bit about virtual tours using 360-degree photos, easy sharing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, it'll bring you here. I've made a tour before to use as my resume. But what we're going to do is we're going to click New Tour. You can see the first thing you do is you will title it. So we're going to put Science Tour. Whoops. And we're going to describe this as an example for how we can make tours in our classrooms. So I'm going to select an image. My cover photo here, I downloaded a science image just a second ago, so we're going to go ahead and choose that. And under category, we're just going to put this as, we'll call it science. There we go. So I'm going to hit create, and that is going to bring up my first scene. So you can do several things with this. You can type in specific addresses or places. So I am originally from Niagara Falls, New York. So if I want to type in Niagara Falls, I could type that in, and you can see it puts me right here at the observation deck. People can upload their own photos. So this is actually an observation deck from Cave of the Winds. But if you look on the left here, I can take my little person and kind of drag it around, and I can place it in a random place. So right here, I believe I'm on Buffalo Ave. You can see you're doing full 360. And as soon as I find my place, so I think something really cool would be the Yum Center. So let's find that. And you can see I'm standing right outside the Yum Center. Now, this isn't necessarily scientific, but it is something we are all familiar with being in the city here. So now that I have that selected, let me open that up a little bit more. You can see at the bottom here it says Add Scene. I'm going to go ahead and click that. I can title this scene the Yum Center. And I can type a description in here. So the description is good for people going through and looking at the tour. So I can say, this is the front view of the KFC Yum Center. I can give credits to somebody here. You can see that I can also add a scene narration, or I can add ambient audio. So if I were to take a picture myself and I wanted to add some narration, let's say I was using this to do a virtual field trip for my students. If I had taken that field trip to start and recorded my tour guide, I could import that recorded audio and give my students a field trip of somewhere without them ever leaving the classroom. So we're going to set our starting view. I think looking at this skyscraper right here is really pretty, so we're going to hit set starting view, and we can scroll until we want people to see what it is. So whenever people open into this scene for the first time, that is the view that they are going to have. Now, we can do a couple other things through here. We can add a point of interest, and you can see I'm able to drag that across the screen. So I'm going to move that, and we'll move it again. So let's put this right here. We can title this whatever we want. I'm going to put Cardinal Logo, and we can describe the point of interest. This is the logo for the University of Louisville Athletics. So you'll also notice I can add a site narration. So when people look at this in their tour, or if they're looking at it on a phone or computer or tablet and they click on that, it would allow that narration to play. And I can also add an image overlay to that as well. So you can add as many points of interest to a scene as you feel is necessary. So if I wanted to talk about this fountain, or I wanted to talk about some of the other buildings around me, I could definitely do that. After that, you can continue to keep adding scenes. So let's say I want to get a little red blood versus blue blood rivalry going. I can look up Rupp Arena. And I can look inside. So some of the scenes are actually really cool. You can actually look inside. So right now we are currently inside the Lexington Center attached to Rupp Arena. So after I hit add scene, again, we can have all the same functions here. So I can title this Rupp Arena. I can describe the scene. I can give credits to a person who I know took the photo. I can do all of these things that I did before. And I can continue to add scenes until my tour is fully fleshed out. When you're ready to publish, what you'll do is you'll click the Publish button up here, the blue one. That's Science Tour. It's got 2 scenes. You can make the visibility unlisted, or you can make it public. So if I make it public, then anybody can find this. I'm going to hit Publish. And it gives me the link to this tour as well. So I can go and click View Tour, and you'll see that I can go through here. I can click on my point of interest, and it brings up the information. I can switch between scenes. I can like this tour. I can share this tour. The really cool thing is that when you are on your phone through the Google Expeditions app, you can actually bring up this tour and you can find it for yourself. So you can give a guided tour of this throughout your classes. So just to show you the last little bit of this here, we just got done creating our own tour. Now I am in the Google Expeditions app, so you can see it's the app. You have to download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store, but it's an orange flag within a little circle there. So we're going to open that. If I am logged in on the same account which I made my tour, you can see downloads here. You want to make sure you're in the same account. But if I click on my tours right here, it looks like my science tour appears. I can click download to view or guide, and as soon as that downloads. So this is something really, really cool to do with your students. Again, for a field trip in which you can't afford to take students there, you can go ahead and do the field trip yourself, have a tour guide, or have yourself record your field trip as you go through on just any kind of recorder. It could be a voice memo on your phone. And then you can sync up those 360 pictures with your audio, and you can create a narrated field trip for your students. So I can click View if I wanted to view this tour. So you can see there's the Yum Center. We can see the Cardinal logo. If I click on that, that same point of interest is highlighted. Or if I wanted to guide my students through this, it's going to pop up just like it did before. I hit Got It. And my students can follow me as we take a guided tour of Rupp Arena and the Yum Center. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you would like to use virtual reality, augmented reality, or any of the VR goggles in your classroom, please reach out to us. We would love to help set up some co-teaching with you and get that going for your students. Thank you so much.